Hello and welcome to lecture 3 of the Java programming program. Today's topic is data types and typecasting. So there are two types of data types. First of all, what are data types? So data types are basically attributes which you can give to a variable. So it basically gives information about what you're trying to use that variable for. So if you want to say if you want to put a character into a variable, then you assign it the data type character. If you just want to put a normal integer, then you assign it the data type int. If you want to assign it a decimal value, then you assign it the data type float. It is a way for Java to know that what you want to do with that variable. So there are two types of data types. First is a primitive data type. It consists of these and the non-primitive data types. These include classes, interfaces, and arrays. These consist of using these primitive data types by ourselves. Like in classes, we can basically combine one character, one integer, and so on. So these are made from combination of primitive data types. So first of all, we'll talk about primitive data types. So first of all is the byte. So byte has size of 1 byte. 1 byte is equal to 8 bits in our machine. So byte takes up size of 1 byte and can store integer values ranging from -1 to 8 to +1 to 7. Then comes short. Short has the size of 2 bytes and can store these values. We don't necessarily use these. It is just there, but we don't use them much. We do use integer and we do use long quite often. So integer, as we used in the previous lecture also, it is of size 4 and can contain integer values ranging from this to this. Long is basically a bigger integer, so it is double the size of integer and can store much more massive values. These come handy when you're trying to use big values. So then comes float. Up until now we can only use integer values. So if you wanted to assign it 1.5, it won't work in int. So for decimal values we use float. The float is also 4 bytes, but it can take decimal digits also. And similarly, as we had long toward int, we have double to float. So double is basically a bigger type of float. So it is of 8 bytes, double the size of float, but it can take much more bigger values. So then comes bool. So bool is of 1 bit. Remember, 8 bits is 1 byte. So it is basically 1/8 of a byte. So bool is a special as a special oops with special data type. It basically has just two stages. So it is either true or it is false. So these are often used to make some flags. So we can assign that if we can use this to say that we can perform a task until this variable is true, and then we can assign false when we want to finish the task. So bool is often used for that. Then comes the character. Up until now we were talking about only integers. So characters gives us the access to these letters, alphabets. So one character is of 2 bytes and it can only store a single character. So capital A, small c. So it will only store a single character. So and yeah, characters are surrounded by single quotes as shown. Single quotes. Yeah, and up until now, whatever else was remaining, the integers and floats, all these, they did not have to contain. They did not have to be contained within any quotes. We just directly put the values. But for characters, we have to put single quotation marks. So then comes the non-primitive data types, and these refer to some objects. These are created by the programmer as per our convenience and are not inbuilt and defined within Java. These can also be null. So when we say, let's say you don't want to store anything in your data in a variable right now, so you can just make it null, so it won't take a space. Then we have typecasting in Java. So typecasting is basically assigning uh, uh, a value of one data type to another data type. So if let's say you want to convert an integer value to a float value, so this is called typecasting. So typecasting is of two types. First a narrowing and then is the widening. First is the narrowing casting. So it converts a larger data type into a smaller data type. So we can convert a float into a long. This is basically the hierarchy order: double, float, long, int, char, short, byte. So let's say we want to convert a float into a long. So we can uh, we have to assign 4.5 and then we have to convert it into a long. So the program doesn't know what to do, how to convert, what to do with the 0.5, like what should it do. So this is why this has to be done manually, and our program cannot do it by itself. It has to be done manually and it is susceptible to runtime errors. On the other hand, we have widening casting. It converts a smaller size data type into a larger size data type. So this can be done automatically by the compiler. So let's say we have a long which is 4 and we want to convert it to a float value. So it can simply assign 4.0 to it and it will become float and the value has not changed at all. So this is easy for our computer to understand and thus can be performed automatically by the compiler. So this is it for the lecture. This is it for the lecture, and this was a theory lecture, so not much practical. But if you have any questions, you can comment it down, and hopefully see you in the next lecture. So wish you a very happy learning. Goodbye.